Friends, good afternoon to all. Today is Wednesday, August 9th, 1347. Let's go figure out what's going on in the market. So, I want to note that we have a very interesting trend on this chart of the daily SNK index of 500. I have already noted it today in my Telegram channel. In principle, you can find a link in the description, so we look at what I said. We have data on new Kai minus new Loi for the current index, that is, new Kai, new Loi shares of the outgoing in this composition. We see a very interesting such imbalance. Yes, we have very well strongly deviated upward new Kai, and usually this is a sign of strong deviations, usually a sign that the market will decline. And in principle, if you look at the average 10-day moving average for this indicator, we are lower and approaching zero. That is, the Kai minus layers in the region of zero, although before that, in principle, we had almost 20% there, so to speak, of the CIS index of 500 were on historical Kai. Well, in principle, this information will be quite useful for those who are thinking. Let's move on to the following indicators. We have a percentage of haze, but there is more of an index percentage from stock charts, then we have a decline here and, in principle, it all correlates with the market movement itself, which I perceive as a decline. Also, the poppy has turned around and has been going down for several days, and this in principle suggests that this is a serious sign for a decline. The high percentage index, which has already been admitted to the area of as much as 49% since its 90s, when, remember, I said here that wait for the price to drop. Of course, this is not a sign to, for example, look for purchases, because after all, I hardly believe that something will change in the market and America will feel good now. Of course, it will definitely feel better than European indices, we will talk about them separately, or individual American stocks, but nevertheless, I am still considering a decline more. Plus to all this, let's say everything in a row. My calculation on the new haze minus is not low, yes, divided into 52-day haze is one of the indicators that shows, well, so to speak, turning points for growth. This indicator works great on pullbacks, yes, in order to trade in an ascending market, but nevertheless, what do we have? We have this descent, which has descended into the negative zone. Of course, it is very, very faintly visible, there is a value of 0 minus 0, 2 commas, hundredths, but nevertheless this indicator can be considered as one of the prerequisites for continuing to decline. Plus, we can already see that the Reich rate for general yes, stocks and indices is gaining, it reaches 1, and this suggests that uncertainty appears again in the market, which of course should be used. According to VIX, we are seeing an upswing, yes, although the price is being adjusted in the opposite direction, but nevertheless I believe that in principle the whole movement will continue in the future and of course VIX will grow, of course not without correction, this also needs to be taken into account. According to the S&P 500 index itself, we are still above the weekly anchor, yes, and accordingly we are reaching, hanging out, so to speak, in the first and second zones. Now we are fighting off the first zone of the standard deviation according to anchor, which has been operating since the beginning of this week. Well, this range is calculated based on the VA itself. At the moment, the price has gone up from the shift, so to speak, of the day in New York. Also our index jumped well at the beginning of the European session, but so far we are the highest. I believe that we will have a descent, naturally, we will wait for a more or less adequate, understandable descent, although it is already being formed here in principle. And of course we will look for sales, yes, by indices, as I basically continue to search. Why more sales? It must be remembered that indexes have properties to show real upward reversals very, well, how to say, dynamic. Here, so far, I see that a strong price is very impressive and, accordingly, I perceive it as a stack of shorts. Shorting stock indices is, of course, such a disastrous thing, one might say, but I would consider the indices of some other countries in order to shake up about the same Britain there, which, in principle, we are doing now. Well, let's see what our priorities are. Let me remind you right away that on my website, if you go to the main page, we have the block here, yes, and there are forecasts. Those who, for example, will watch this video in another language, I want to immediately show that we have a language selection function here. You can choose the one that suits you. I will turn it on immediately into English and of course, I think everyone will understand how to work further. So, we take a video and watch who does not know, in English, in Russian there is how to work with these priorities. I want to mention something. We have very good descents on some of the max here, but let's run through all the tools in a row. So, picks. Our VCS rises to the range of 17, in principle, purchases can already be considered, but be careful that the price still breaks out of these limits and begins to rise further up. So far, it remains with the trend, but I would definitely not have opened it. The priority level continues to grow from 500 so far, although the price is decreasing, that is, a real change in priority will happen somewhere here. What will just be more interesting is just for the change. We have already started the descent, yes, although the price is still higher, of course, the change of priorities, which I think we have 15,000 in it already. When there is a price, then it will be possible to consider sales more relevant. For oil, Vitya, our oil is going up. In principle, as I said, inflation will continue to grow, respectively, our oil is also growing and very confidently. Therefore, as if for oil, we are still considering a buy. Natural gas is hanging out in the range, but look, we are already approaching the 3-piece, yes, so look for pullbacks in order to go to buy. Gold. For gold, the uncertainty of 19,950, 1,955 are levels. In principle we are higher, you can look for purchases, but be careful, this is not exactly an interesting moment for an asset. Euro dollars are definitely porridge. I can't understand anything here right now, because the price doesn't deviate either up or down, that is, I don't see any certainty on the euro dollar. Bitcoin started to go down, but again the price starts to break up. That is, I will think that when we get down from here more or less adequately, only then will we consider sales. We are not considering them yet. 10-year treasury bonds will go down. Why? Because the interest rate is going to be raised in the future and naturally this will affect its value. In fact, rather, the yield of the treasury bond and, accordingly, the value of the futures itself, it will continue to decline. You can take advantage of this. But I recommend trading bonds very much to take a closer look at this idea. Wheat. There is ambiguity in wheat, yes, a grain deal is hanging there. So far, we are in a downward movement. Here there were attempts to endure, yes, but in principle they were not crowned with anything. There are corridors, in principle, I think that the price will fluctuate. Consider, if at the moment I would still consider with very careful, so to speak, stop-loss sales for wheat, because it is not logical that it is not growing now. That is, for me it's kind of a little embarrassing. Well, let's go on the S&P 500 or spike, as I said, that we basically have a similar index, and even now we can consider selling below the level of 441. So far we are above it, so for now it is an upward trend, but we already remember that we will soon go down there and, accordingly, we can look for sales. Note that we are still keeping afloat, yes, in principle, it is moving upwards like a ruler, a very interesting asset. In principle, the meta so far, they say, can be said to look the best to me in my opinion. Amazon was approaching the level of 125, but now it is in the area after, yes, and we have 139. In principle, I think that it can still grow, but I do not consider any kind of long-term purchases, so I revised Microsoft, Apple, Tesla as sales. Let's take a look at Microsoft. I like Microsoft because it begins to change its priority, yes, in the area of $330. In principle, you can already look for a rollback in sales, so to speak, well, not for a long time, yes, in a short position, but nevertheless you can already look for sales on Microsoft. According to the AAPL, plus or minus the same picture. The AAPL is very serious, yes, the leading company broke the bottom very quickly from the level of $196 to $180-176, that is, the AAPL really fell by 10% and this is serious, this is a prerequisite for continuing to share it further. We'll dilute it a little with Google. Google is currently holding back, trying to adjust all the time, respectively, thinking that everything will be rolled back periodically. It is still possible to buy it, but personally I will refrain from buying. I am exactly configured for a short, that is, in principle, all the indexes of shorts, just choose what is better and of course all this too shorting, just what is said looks better for a short position. I like Tesla the most, it is more technical and, in principle, it is very well fixed, so here you can enter short, yes, every $10, that is, well, we'll take a round level, there will say $250, $260, $280 and somewhere 310 is it is possible to place short positions on Tesla. I think Tesla will continue to fall. Everything, in principle, everything that is prioritized, let's look at the arrow that I currently have on the FTSE or the British index. Yes, let me show you what it is. This is our British index, respectively, we are holding short positions here so far. We reached up to 40% of the profit at the moment, now it's only just 17, but I'm going to keep it for now. If the price goes up a little bit, I will consider the possibility of going on sale again and making money from it. As if my goal is from 70% to this deal, to make money on this deal. Well, basically everything I wanted to say. Artem was with you, there is a skiff, and in principle, stay with me on my Telegram channel, subscribe to my YouTube, well, who is interested, let's say my analysis, you can ask me personal questions and a little information for those who are considering learning opportunities. Let's go to my website right away. Russian is the language I'm turning on right now, because I mostly conduct consultations in Russian, but you can choose and see, get acquainted with the information in any available language. My course of study, descriptions on it and something I wanted to say. Now I have corrected one price and made a very affordable consultation for those traders who want to get financing, and from $10,000 to $20,000. But again, I want to emphasize, this is for successful traders, those who already have a trading strategy, but need a deposit. You can go home for advice. 1-hour consultation on how to get a trading account into management. The cost of this consultation is only $100, a purely symbolic price. Therefore, friends who like this information, please like it. You can ask me questions in the comments and I'm waiting on my Telegram channel. And Artem Yaki was with you, you earn. Bye.